Welcome to the Esoerotic Dark Feminine Magic Podcast. My name is Crimson, creatrix of Esoeroticism, and I help mystically minded folks awaken their dark feminine magic. Welcome to the Portal of Enchantment. Welcome, Katie, to the Esoerotic Dark Feminine Magic Podcast. It is so amazing to have you join us today. How are you doing? And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Crimson. I'm really excited to be here. I am Katie Healy. I'm a somatic practitioner. I specialize in breathwork, sound healing, Reiki. I'm also an astrologer and a grief worker. So, like you, I do a few different things, but all in the realm of processing through the body. So whether that's using somatic tools like sound and breath work, or that's using grief work to help process emotion. And also I'm trying to, in this current iteration of my work, marry astrology and somatics. So that's kind of like the next thing I'm digging into.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, I'm hot for all of that. We were introduced through our mutual friend, Emily Rose, and
Yes.
she was very right that we have a lot in common and that even just like personality wise, I think we mesh. And so I'm so grateful just to have you on to chat. We didn't even have an agenda. We both decided like, we're real chatty. Let's see where this goes. And so, and you're also an actor or actress, or you teach within those realms?
Yes, I do. So that's really my background in all any emotional work, really. And I used to think when I started, I was kind of pushed into this realm of somatics, wellness, all the things. And I used to wonder how I was going to be able to marry the two. And it is so clear to me now. The work that I trained in as an actor specifically helped me hold space for such a depth of emotion and required me to be able to do that. So it makes so much sense. I'm also an actor. I teach at an acting studio, breathwork specifically. Just the style of breathwork I teach is a 3-part active meditation. So more of an active breathwork, kind of like holotropic, essentially. And the reason why I teach it to the actors is because as an actor, you're truthfully examining the human experience. And if you're going to do quality work, it requires you to be able to hold that level of experience, not just the love, the joy, the freedom, but also the anger, the frustration, the like tears of rage, death, grief, all of it. So in order to be able to process that emotion through their bodies and hold it in a way that doesn't look contorted and challenging to watch, you have to be able to have a fluid, open instrument. So I teach that for them as well at a studio in Manhattan, Maggie Flanagan's studio.
So cool. Yeah, I was going to point out that you are in New York City. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's very interesting that a lot of people who I've been talking to recently have found themselves in their work doing things that they could have never conceptualized. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing breath work and somatics, like with like interwoven with astrology for actors and grief processing. Like, there's literally no way that you could have known that's where you're going to end up and reverse engineer from there. And so I feel like there's something happening right now where we are being called to really alchemize our like depth of uniqueness and to like
Mm.
step into work from that perspective. Is that something you've been noticing, or what are you?
Absolutely. I mean, for myself especially, I was so focused on always being an actor, and it was really the only thing that I felt fully called to do. I tried a lot of different things. I have an immigrant parent, so he required me to do a lot of different things to be, responsible and have a more 9 to 5 contributing, functioning member of society. And the only thing I kept coming back to is acting. But there were inclinations of, growing up, I was so drawn to astrology, even just like the horoscopes in the newspaper. And I was really discouraged away from it. But as my life started to unfold and a lot of turmoil and things started to happen, it's something I came back to. And now, even looking at my birth chart and understanding it and seeing my stellium in the 8th house and my placements in the 4th and the 12th and all these things I have, I'm like, hello, of course, this is what you would be doing. My Pisces North Node, all these things. But I think in general, whether it's astrology based, like Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, or just our overall dissatisfaction with how society has been functioning, and this, we're almost reaching this boiling point of not being able to take it anymore collectively. People are fed up, they're tired, dissatisfied. So I think we're all, whether we realize it subconsciously or consciously, really coming up against not just like what does it all mean, but what do I want to contribute? How can things be different? I'm not satisfied, so what do I need to change? And I'm seeing that a lot, just I think in the way people are coming back around to these holistic practices. I'm sure you know, like astrology and breathwork and using the body to process instead of all the gadgets and gizmos. I sound like, what is that, Beauty and the Beast? But like all the things, all the oh no, Ariel, Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
All the things outside of ourselves that we, the aura rings and things, which, you know, the way we've been called to optimize our lives, and everyone's, the pendulum swung so far in one direction. Now we're being asked or forced to kind of go back in the other and then find the space to live in that in between.
I heard someone say that, instead of hot girl summer, it's hot mess summer. And like this projection of like, I will not optimize. I will not be like the most, optimized version of myself. I think there has been such a shift, and it just feels like it's happened in 2026 even,
Mm-hmm.
obviously rearing its head in 2025, but of exactly what you said, people being like, you know what? I don't fucking care to be optimized. I don't care to like have to measure and quantify and qualify every aspect of my life, my sleep,
Mm.
my workouts, my eating, all of that. Like boring. I there's the guy Brian something.
Oh God,
You know,
Brian Johnson.
you know Brian. You know Brian.
Oh, I know Brian. Oh my God. As much as I'm a lover, I am also a hater. I get.
And
I know
so,
Brian. He gave himself an autoimmune disease.
yes, spoiler for anyone who's like, who's this Brian guy? I think I've talked about him before, but yeah, he's
Mm.
like the pinnacle of human optimization. He spends
Mm-hmm.
millions of dollars per year,
Two
just
million.
2 million a year optimizing his
Mm-hmm.
health, and he got an autoimmune because he was not living like a human. He was turning into a cyborg and was just not even getting the
Yeah,
necessary
he was
bacteria and
making his
sunlight.
life. He was making his life a science experiment. And you know, the Gemini rising in me appreciates his curiosity to like learn and understand. We need those people too. But I think so I'm just going to say something you already know. We spent Pluto, the planet of transformation, was in Capricorn for the last 20 years. And when you think about politically, societally, the people that we had in charge, the people that we put into power or work their way into power, however you feel about politics and authority, but the way we were functioning as a society in terms of like, and I, as a Capricorn stellium, really fall into this trap. Like, the more I do, like, I have to, the harder I work, the more I do, the more I give, the more I show up, then the more I'll get out of life. Even if I am doing it from like the kindness of my heart, I feel like it has to work out if I put 150% of myself into everything. And that didn't work out for us. It certainly hasn't worked out for me all the time. And collectively, we're shifting into Pluto and Aquarius, where it's like, if it's not good for all of us, it's not good for any of us. So I do think the big astrology of this year, too, 2026, it's been like the slow buildup, but the outer planets changing is what's requiring all of us to just say, this doesn't work, not just for me, but for us.
And it's challenging because I think all of us have experienced when it did work, because
Mm.
in a capacity, it did work in the
Mm-hmm.
old paradigm where it's, oh, if I do put in the extra effort, if I do push, that saying, push through, if I do push
Yeah.
through, if I do pull the all nighters and all of that, play into that optimization culture. Like there was a moment in time where it did work, and now energetically it doesn't work, and there's a cognitive dissonance there.
I agree. And I'm the first to say it does, it has worked for me to work really hard and push really hard and do as much as I can. And over this last year in particular, for me, it just brought me up against so many things that it didn't matter how hard I worked. It didn't matter how much I gave to the opportunity, the relationship, it still didn't work out. And I think we're learning this hard lesson, at least in America. I can't speak for other countries because I was raised here. We're learning this really hard lesson of what happens when we live in the extremes of everything. Like it's only this way or only that way. And we're being required to find our way back to whatever center means for us. But like, even when I got into wellness, I feel like everybody does this. You go like so hard and so deep and so fast, and you're like, it's this or nothing. And it becomes dogmatic. And then you learn and you grow and you evolve, and you're like, oh, also life is meant to be lived. Like
Can't
life
have
is
chicken
meant
and
to be lived.
broccoli for every freaking meal and get up at
I
5
could,
a.m.
yeah.
to do my
Yeah. Oh
workout
God.
every day.
I'm
Live
not
a
part of the
little.
5 a.m. club. I am not part of the 5 a.m. club. Or just even this, I think sometimes, I'm sure you relate to this, they have an idea of me because they hear what I do, and then I open my mouth, or they see me like, drinking a margarita, and I'm like, yeah, I could do both things. I can have a day where I watch 5 hours of my favorite TV show, and then the next day I'm in like a 3 hour breathwork workshop. Like it doesn't have to be. I think what's really going to start to happen is we're realizing it doesn't have to be all or nothing in terms of how we show up. And it's more in like the way we align ourselves with the things that actually matter to us.
It was so illusionary for a while, and I don't know if that was like the
Mm,
Neptune and Pisces of like, oh yes, like this idea that
hmm
that there were people who were just living these like completely quote unquote aligned, quote unquote optimized, quote unquote like at the height of their game lives, and we realized that was such bullshit. That was a facade on that all of these people who you once took as an authority, thinking that they were
hmm
100% walking this walk that they talked, like that's humanly impossible. We're not
hmm
meant to just be the Dalai Lama and just our whole life given to like this spiritual, even the Dalai Lama, has had problematic things, right?
Of course.
There's no perfection in any of this. And it's like, such a relief to be like,
Mhm.
not advocating for everyone to be hot messes. I'm advocating for everyone to be human. And yeah,
Yes.
have the margarita, and also go do your breath work, and also
Mhm.
have an ugly cry, and also go and dance, so
Mm.
have like a breath
I
of human
think.
experience that's not based on, to me it comes down to, it's like purity culture, where it's like this perfection
hmm
slash purity, whatever you want to name it, culture.
Trad wives coming back and all this, like all of it, which, to each their own. But a few years ago, I was I was in a moment where I was coming up against something with someone that I had put on a pedestal, right? Like, and they had let me down, or as I had perceived as feeling let down. And I had a close friend in the acting world, actually, who told me, her name's Karen Chamberlain, and she was like, Katie, people aren't just good or just bad.
Ooh, that's really.
No one is just good or just bad. And people really fight me on that. People really,
Oh.
and I feel in today's day and age, there are maybe some exceptions that some people that are just but I would say they didn't start that way, right? Like no one ever starts that way. They veer and they go, and they're rooted in the wrong ideals and what matters to them. But people aren't just good or just bad, and the more we create this space for fallibility and for people to fuck up and make mistakes. And I had someone do it to me last week, and I was like, I need you to know I make mistakes all the time, constantly. I move too fast, I go too quickly, you know, In the simplest form, I mess up in an email. In the biggest form, I mess up in a relationship dynamic. I cannot be held to the pedestal or the standard you want to put me on, and I won't. That's not going to work for me. And it's scary to say that because vulnerability, but I think that's what it really all comes down to. Like, that it's not just good or bad, right or wrong. It's the space that lives in between. And of course, we want to function from a place of our most authentic self as much as possible. But the purity culture, the idea that perfection exists, is the biggest crock of shit that has, especially, I can only speak as a woman, has I've spent so much of my time trying to be perfect or get it right. And that was just so missing the point in so many ways, I feel.
My gosh, the liberation that comes from like really being able to strip away those expectations, whether it
Mm-hmm.
comes to, yeah, how you are showing up in friendship circles or how you physically look or your performance at work or whatever. Just, oh my gosh, like that's something I've been working on a lot this past year
Mm-hmm.
of just trying to strip away this idea of perfection in like something that I'm trying to attain. And instead, what you spoke about before is kind of learning to understand myself at an authentic level and putting
Mm-hmm.
my efforts more into like stripping away what it is that holds me back from really being anchored in that authenticity versus trying to contort myself into like this external idealized version of who we're supposed to be as like some a kind of radiant star of success, like, oh well, when you
Mm.
can do this and that and appears that and all of a sudden you've reached whatever it is that you've been striving towards. And it's like, it's why I love the dark feminine work. It's always like peeling away layers and going deeper
Mm-hmm.
within versus trying to like achieve this external standard that is like impossible to live up to.
Yeah, all these standards are made up anyway. Like, I say all the time, I'm like, money made up, time made up, all of these things made up. Nothing is, not to get all, I don't have any Aquarius placements, thank goodness, because I'd be gone. But I'm like, everything's made up when I really get on my soapbox about fitting into dynamics. And that doesn't mean I don't fall regularly, like privy to buying into them too, and placing them on myself. It's so much easier to preach than practice. Sometimes I find I'm always coming back up against the, what am I saying, how am I living, what am I telling my students and my clients, am I doing this, this dance with being aligned with what I believe and what I share. And then actually, it's easy to say it, it's so much harder to actually live it every
Oh,
day. It's challenging as fuck.
and it's, this sounds awful, but it's satisfying to see a lot of the people who really kind of played into that dynamic being
Mm.
revealed or exposed now of like not being able to live up to that. So there
Mm-hmm.
is like this return to humanity that's really beautiful. And it is, I think, like in response to the AI and the technology and all of that. But I think it's also a response to, yeah, this we were putting all these people on pedestals and
Mm-hmm.
idealizing people and trying to live up to a version of self that would have been really, we'll call it Brian-y. It would be very Brian-y. I feel so bad for Brian. Brian just does not seem to have a good life. Like, stay up past
Brian, come
50
on the
on the mic.
pod. Come, come on the pod.
I'm just
Let's
like,
flesh this out. Let's
what's
dig into your
happening?
trauma. I need his birth chart. Oh my gosh. Actually,
That
yeah,
would
we're
be
looking that up. We
a
gotta look that
good
up.
one. Cause I just think bro could do all of that and just get hit by a car. Like, what, what's he, Bubble Boy? So you could do all of this. And at the end of the day, something really freak accident could happen. Your fridge could fall on you. Like, I don't know. And it's like, we gotta live. And so I love hot
Hmm.
mess summer a little bit.
I haven't heard that, but I feel it. I feel like every summer's hot mess summer for me because I'm a Cancer Chiron. So I'm always like Chiron and Cancer in my second house of self-worth. I'm always like,
Ooh.
I said it to, I've been going through it this week to be fully transparent.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, you said you were going to be going through it. And then you go through it and you're like, how is this happening? I'm like, well, I'm just a human girl. Like, I'm just a woman. This is my first time as this version of Katie. So I was like, I say it every year. I'm like, Cancer season, please just, I will go. Just like, I will not require you to drag me anymore, but please be gentle with, please be gentle with taking me under. And it always, in some aspect, like every year is different. It's another layer of coming up against my self-worth and money and my resources. And this year is, whoo, it's real every time.
Well, I have my Chiron in Taurus, which is, we
Mm.
know rules the second house. So it's very similar vibes. And my time
Mm-hmm.
lord last year was the moon. And so I had
Mm.
basically that for a full year. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Yeah. Like just that emotional. So essentially what Katie and I were both experiencing in kind of two different placements is this idea of emotionally moving through self-worth issues. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we all will have some placement that when that will activate and you know what it is, it's not fun.
Yeah. Could be Chiron. I'm also in my nodal return. So like I'm a Pisces North Node, Virgo South Node, and it's just I'm ready to say goodbye to her. I'm like, the lessons we've learned.
Yeah, that
I've
is
learned.
not the most fun one.
Yeah. No, and I really thought it was going to be because I remember the last time it happened and I was like, oh, I wasn't even aware of it. And so much happened in my life, so much changed and transformed. And so I was like, I'm going to be aware of it this time and harness the power. And nothing turned out the way I thought it was going to turn out. Which is, exactly how it's meant to unfold. But that doesn't mean I wasn't like kicking and screaming along the way.
Yeah, a lot of that with astrology, you kind of think, a lot of, if you get the pop culture astrology, it'll be like, oh my gosh, like Jupiter's transiting Leo, like everything's just going to be fucking amazing. And it's like, no, the more and more you study astrology, you realize that all the pop culture stuff is so base. Yeah,
Yeah.
not accurate.
It's so nuanced in a way. And sure, Jupiter is a planet of abundance. It's also the planet of expansion. So depending on what you're focused on, that is where it will expand, and it might not always be in the way you want it to. But that's what I love about astrology. I always say the only thing I believe in more than astrology is free will,
Yeah.
because it gives you the choice to, here's the information, what are you going to do with it? And I know it gets a bad rep in so many different, usually by men and by Capricorn, or like people with Capricorn and Aquarius placements. I say that as a Capricorn stellium in the eighth house, but I find, sure, anything can be used to placate bad behavior. Anything in this world, like anything can be used in a negative light. Even the best of things have been used for quote unquote evil or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was more about like the more I started to learn, understand, and not just with my thinking mind, like this is where the somatics come in. You can know everything about astrology, but again, if you're not practicing what you preach, if you're not embodying how you live through and live out that energy and experience it from other people, it doesn't really, you can have all the information in the world. If you're not enacting it, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's what I love so much about astrology. It's helped me, yes, understand myself better, but it's given me such a breadth of language and understanding for other people that I used to come into such harsh juxtaposition to, or square in astrology terms, like I like square right up against literally and like physically. And it's given me such an understanding, not to placate, but like to hold myself and the other person accountable and how we relate to one another.
I agree. I think that astrology is going to get very popular. I think it
Mm-hmm.
already is. And I think human design also is something that I'm noticing as people are getting even more interested in. And I think it's amazing because they are modalities that help you understand yourself
Mm-hmm.
versus what we talked about before, assuming that we're all monoliths and are expected to operate within this world in the same
Yeah.
way. Like, absolutely not. And it does give you so much compassion and understanding for people who are different from you. I totally
Mm.
agree. Being able to put the language to it of like, well, that's because they're Scorpio moon, and I try not to speak like that all the time, but I find myself even in my
No.
head being like, okay, well, it's because of this, this, and this, But it also helps you understand why people operate the way they do.
Hmm. And I think I've seen this many times before, for children that felt really misunderstood, they can latch onto things like astrology and human design. Or my favorite is the corporate people who are like, astrology is bullshit. I'm like, how many times have you done Myers-Briggs? It's the same thing. It's the
What's your
same
Enneagram?
thing.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, like why are those? What, astrology is way more ancient, way more tested, way more like it was literally
Nuance.
created in a way for the most upper echelon royal people to kind of predict the trajectory of their lives. So what? Why is it? Why is Myers Briggs an Enneagram, which I love, by the way, ENFP,
Eighth house, you're going to love
Enneagram
anything. Wait,
Enneagram 4, ENFP, I know all the things. I mean, I'm also in human design, I'm a manifester 3-5 emotional authority. So I love them all. I'm, no hate to Myers-Briggs or Enneagram, but it's the same, it's just a different language. And for me, it's like however you understand it, that's what I care people investing in. So even sometimes people will see me for astrology and if it doesn't resonate, I'm like, try human design, try, take this test, take that test. There's so many things available to us now that, in my opinion, we don't have an excuse anymore to not be willing to understand each other.
yeah, I am also a 3-5 emotional authority, though I'm a generator,
Mm,
and I am an
okay.
INFP instead of an ENFP. So no wonder we are
Of
very
course.
similar. But exactly. And, I teach magic and witchcraft and
Hmm.
esotericism as well. And I
Hmm.
always say the whole point of it, a lot of people get into those practices because they want to manifest and they want to like force their will upon, their external reality, when actually the whole point of those practices is to know thyself, to understand yourself as is within. And that's actually how you manifest without. But we've been so conditioned, I think, to believe that we have to force our will, very much what you talked about
Hmm.
before. Like, if I show up harder, if I can get my routine perfect and I do my tarot every morning and I follow even the astrology, all of that, then I will receive this external validation of success, the love, the money, the friendships, the all of that. And it's like, all of that starts from within. And all these tools that Katie just said are ways to understand who you are within so you can then show up as that. And that's where the magnetism happens.
I have a question for you, but I also want to say, just for anyone listening, and the way the people perceive me sometimes is always so interesting to me. But I am someone who this week has been trying to force my will on a situation that I know will cannot be forced on. And I know all these things and I do these things and I teach these these methods and things, and I am just as guilty to fall back into the trap and the habit. What, I'm 37, and so I spent almost 30 years really operating from one place all the time. It's probably going to take me a little longer than 7 years to completely break the trauma, the habit, the pattern, the conditioning, to not try to force myself to have everyone bend to my will and to my desire. And I had a teacher, or have a teacher, who always says, when guiding or talking about how to guide students through an experience, she always just refers back to just say what you need to hear. And I think it took me a long time as a teacher and a facilitator holding big space for people. There were so many times in the beginning where I felt like I had to do more and say more, and I can still put that pressure on myself. Even my class this morning, I teach this class I created called Somatic Sculpt. It's a sculpt class with somatic elements. And I find my last night I was really obsessing about the movement and doing something different, and I quickly had to be like, you're missing the point. What do you need? What do you need to hear? What do you need to feel? What's the space that you need to create? Because more often than not, when we're just kind of talking to ourselves in a more open, inviting way, inviting the space in, that's what usually people need to hear. The people that are showing up for my class or your workshops or any space that you guide, they're attracted to you not just because of who you are, but because there's some like commonality. The same way you and I were, attracted to connecting as well. And she always says that, just say what you need to hear, and that's what will resonate with people. And I think all week, whether it was a private session or my classes, and I'm trying to like force and contort and manipulate a situation, I was just talking about when that tension comes up in your body and you feel like you have to prove more or do more, what if instead you just soften to the feeling? Even when we're in the bicep curl, or even when you're in the breath work and all this tension is rising in your body, how do you just kind of release the grip? And I think really in a way that's what we're talking to, like everyone right now, just releasing the grip we have on how we think everything needs to go and allowing it to unfold in the way that it's just going to be, no matter how hard we try to manipulate, contort, present. The more we can be ourselves, the more fluid, aligned, and grounded our lives will be, I think.
Dang, snaps.
That was long, but
My
I had to get it
God.
all out.
No, that's perfect though. And I think you just spoke to the challenge of surrender. It seems like surrender should be the easiest thing. Just stop forcing your will upon things. Why is surrendering such a challenge? Especially, I'm assuming you're like a type A like me, wanting to control all of the things, control obviously being an
Mm-hmm.
illusion. That is a total deconstruction that's happening right now, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with us really recognizing that control is an illusion. And this is what, I've been trying to speak within my community about, of like, no, but can you really strip away? Can you really, what does happen if you stop forcing? Because have you noticed that it feels like collectively trying to push against a wall, just keep hitting a wall, yet we keep trying to just push harder against the wall, and
Mm-hmm.
really just having to redirect ourselves. That is a challenge, because it's like, but that I know that if I just
Mm-hmm.
push a little harder, that wall will fall and I'll get what I need. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
that wall is stronger than ever now, and is like, no, you can keep pushing. It ain't happening. And it's like this surrender of being like, okay, I'm going to stop doing things, working harder, pushing harder, trying harder, and just let the fuck go. But it's fucking scary, because it's like,
Oh
but that's
yeah.
the way I knew it worked. I don't know how to do it another way, or I don't know how to pursue things in another direction. Have you noticed that with maybe people in your world? That seems to be a recurring theme.
Yeah, I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I have proven to be insane many times myself. I just had to come up in a session with a client this week. And, sometimes I'd love to hear your take on this too when you're working with people in this really sensitive, vulnerable space, especially in the one on one work, because I do groups and I see clients privately. My other teacher always used to talk about the wisdom of appropriateness and how someone really needs to be ready to see that you can't force it on them. And I've had to learn that way too. And we've had many sessions together, and it wasn't until just this session that I was able to ask her and kind of help her see how even though consciously she is so open and available to it and consistent, there's this subconscious thing that happens in her where she stops, where she says no, and her body physically tightens. And when you were just speaking about all this, I was thinking about, you know, we've placed these ideas on feeling that like certain feelings are going to feel this way and other feelings are going to feel this way, and these are good and these are bad. And I think we have this idea of what it means to fall in love, and that it's going to be luxurious and sweet and beautiful and vulnerable, and we forget it's so fucking gnarly and filled with uncertainty and anxiety, and like, even though they're saying this and I'm saying this, and it feels that there can be a level, even the most securely attached person can have old shit come up. And then there's anger, and the person fights the feeling of anger, and they're like, I don't want to feel this, I want nothing to do with this, and then they feel it and it actually feels good. And I think that's what scares people, that we have these ideas of how we're going to feel when we surrender to a feeling, and then sometimes it turns out, and what does it say about me as a person if falling in love feels painful and scary, and feeling anger and frustration feels really fucking good? What, who, it makes you question every part of yourself, which again I think is like the human experience. If we're not always kind of questioning, that was interesting, I didn't expect it to go that way, or it happened differently for me, I think people are really, I feel like a broken record sometimes, but I know that's just what being a facilitator or someone who shares openly is. I'm always like, there are no feelings that are good or bad. There are no experiences that are good or bad. We put our own agenda or our own feelings on the feeling. You know, some people think anger is fantastic. Other people are terrified of it. So I've been seeing it a lot with my clients. I've been coming up against it myself, really, like the things that I want that I've been calling in my life, maybe I think they're starting to happen, and I'm so on guard, protecting my habit is to really protect myself, because I can't, the waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I know better, I know all the things, I see it happening, and I still can have those moments of anxiety, panic, stress. Yeah.
First of all, I can tell that you're a good teacher and guide because you are human within it and are not projecting some kind of like, I have it all figured out.
Oh
So that's
gosh,
always,
no.
that's what I look for in like my teachers and guides, people who are not saying like, I have it figured out, do
Mm-mm.
what I say. People who are saying like, I think that is the future of guides and
Mhm.
teachers and all of that, are people who are moving through it as well, or just, a few feet ahead of you, a few steps ahead of you.
Sure.
And I 100% agree, because I will like resist something because of the perception, like you said, of this is going to be awful. And it's worse staying in that frozen state of
Mhm.
resistance versus just fucking moving through it. And it's like, oh yeah, I mean, that's maybe wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. Like it was more
Mhm.
terrible resisting it.
Absolutely. And I think I have a lot more. I am not afraid of the dark. I am not afraid of my anger and my rage. In acting school, my one of my teacher used to say, she's like, it's like stepping off a curb for you. It comes so naturally. Because growing up, the family system I grew up in, I mean, Irish, like directly from Ireland, not many moons ago. Like my dad was born and raised in Dublin. His mother died when he was fairly young. He left. My mom, American, but also Irish. And, some of the stereotypes about the repression that Irish people carry, at least in my family, it really showed up as rage. And that was the only feeling I was allowed to freely express. That's it. And I naturally am someone who is deeply sensitive and wants to talk about. I process by talking. Gemini rising, Sagittarius sun, and I want to talk things out. I want to talk about how you felt, how I felt, and that was my natural inclination. and then I was conditioned out of it. So rage is something that feels really good for me, and it feels very available to me still a lot. And I don't function from that place anymore, but I am much more comfortable in the darkness and accepting that than I am accepting like my joy. And like I'm talking about this thing that could be happening in my life right now, and I'm just, instead of being in the lightness of it, I'm like waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm in all the past evidence, not the current evidence, right? And I think most of us, operate on, it's a spectrum. So some of us are more comfortable like me in that, like, like I want to get in there. I want to be in the thick of it, and I want to be expressing my emotions in a real way. My breathwork class I teach at a studio in Hoboken. I had someone come up to me a few weeks ago. She's like, "I know you." I was like, "Oh, where did we meet?" She's like, "No, no, no. I know you from Yoga Anu, like all their Instagram and stuff. You're the scream girl." I was like, "Okay, okay. Okay, we only scream in my class for about a minute tops of the whole hour, but you know what? I love and accept that." But when people really get to know me, I think they're also surprised by how like silly and light and warm and free. And I've had to work a lot more on that part of myself, accepting that part, not creating it, but like you said, kind of pulling away all the need to be tough, which was my thing, the need to have it all figured out, to be in control, and allow myself to soften into the other version too. And I'm still working on the waiting for the other shoe to drop. If anyone has any tips or tricks, please let me know. Please. I could use them. But, again, I also know the only way to undo that is to like keep seeing this thing all the way, keep seeing all the things all the way through.
Yeah. I mean, you basically just justified where you started saying, like, I combine these kind of like mystical
Mm-hmm.
tools of self awareness with embodiment, with somatics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know a way. I do not think you can consciously make that shift. I don't like,
Mm-mm.
because if awareness and conscious awareness was the key, then wouldn't everything kind of be solved in an instant? Wouldn't you just be able to flip that
Mm-hmm.
switch? I also believe, like you, that it's deep in the body, and how you said, like, the resistance of certain emotions that people would probably assume would be the easiest. I agree. I run this one class where we move through a bunch of different emotions through our dance, through our esotericism.
Mm.
And in the end, I'll say, okay, which emotion was the most challenging for you to access in your body? And you would be surprised how many people cannot access joy
Mm-hmm.
in their
I'm not
dance.
surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not, because I have been and still can be when I'm thinking too much about it, right? Like when I just let it in the present moment, I can be fully in it. But then when it requires me to, like, when I leave a situation with a person that I'm connecting with, or that's when all the Gemini rising goes. So in acting school, joy was really, really hard for me. It was really hard. It was the hardest emotion for me to like fully embody. And they would always call me out, like, "You're not, no." I'm like, "What am I doing wrong?" But I
Give me
feel
the
happy.
right
I feel
food.
I feel joyful. And that was such an interesting experience, but also helped me now in the work that I do to be like, okay, that's a little, you're performing that, but I'm going to let you it's not my job. I'm not an acting teacher. So it's not my job to call out the authenticity of it. I'm like, keep going, keep finding it. You'll figure out when it's performative, when it's feels really rooted in who you are. And I think that's also so special about what we do. Like, we have to know when to push a little and when to give the space for them to really figure it out, because again, who are we to say what something feels like in someone's body? We're not in there. We can see it, we can encourage it, but ultimately, like, the way I wear joy and the way you wear joy is distinctly unique to each of us. The way we feel, where we feel it in our body, how it's expressed, in the same way with any other emotion, I find. So I do think that's what's so special about what you're doing, what I'm doing, what so many of the people we know and love do, there's such a freedom and acceptance that we can help create for people.
Yeah. Do you think, yes, 100% agree. I think that these modalities we've been talking about are absolutely the future. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Ways to know thyself, the way to process in the depth through the embodiment, through the somatics. It's so cool that you have a somatic based, like, fitness type class in
Don't even ask me how I got there. I still question. I'm like, how the hell did this happen? And every day I'm like, am I sure I want to be doing this? I'm just going to keep going until like I really, but yeah, it's an interesting little foyer into a different realm for sure.
and you're probably a lot of people's first access point to more
Mhm.
somatic style work outside of like a, because obviously somatic just soma the body, but fitness is
Mhm.
inherently, but I understand that you're doing it from a like an awareness, like a
Mhm.
connection versus yeah, we're just going to be lifting these weights. It's like no, we're like incorporating more body based work into it, and so you're probably
Mhm.
a lot of more pedestrian people first foray into like, oh, so the body has like capabilities beyond me just pushing
Mhm.
harder, willing it.
Mhm.
It's like these like little entry points are more important than I think we give them credit for.
Mm. Yeah, I think especially in that class because I know people are coming because they see sculpt. That's
Yeah.
fine. I don't care. I don't care. They're interested enough to try something new, so I really just try to focus on the basics, which is, like Emily said it, and I'm sure you've heard her say it before, and she said it on my podcast. The first rule of practicing embodiment: pee when you gotta pee. Like, just do the thing that feels right in the moment. So, in the class, in somatic sculpt in particular, it's more about notice your breath, what's coming to the surface. Like, we're doing this repetitive movement for however many sets. Just breathe. When your mind wanders, when you get distracted, when you feel like you're focusing on that conversation, that meeting, that argument, just focus on your breath. And then if you create enough awareness around your breath, then you can maybe use your breath to move it up and out of your body. And like today's class, because I'm on a kick with myself about softening into experience, was more like when your body wants to go into fight or flight or tense or whatever you call it for yourself, how do you literally stay in this movement that feels intense and just keep softening into it? So it changes every class depending on, what I'm bringing in. But for the most part, it's like you said, a lot of people's first access point to even noticing breath. So I try to keep it as simple as possible because even just noticing where your breath goes, where your breath lives in your body, and breath work is really for me, the most powerful transformational tool that I have and know and that has changed my life. So just a simple awareness of breath, like if people leave the class feeling and being aware of that and that they actually kind of have a say in what's coming in and what's going out, then that's the point of it to me.
Yeah, because then it becomes an embodied, like anchored in the body, and it's something they apply when they're
Mm-hmm.
at work, when they're giving a presentation, when
Mm-hmm.
they're getting angry at their partner or their kid or whatever, It's like, ooh, now I have this tool, this more natural thing that I've been embodying and experiencing, which is telling me just take a breath right now or notice, come back
Mm-hmm.
to notice the emotion, but don't let it overtake me. So yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
I feel, yeah, there's countless tools. And I love
Mm-hmm.
how we kind of have both found very unique tools that have essentially been inspired by the same thing, although we still both have the astrology tool. My last thing I'm going to ask is, do you think
Mm-hmm.
that, because of this Pluto in Aquarius that we're moving through, does it really, what is your thoughts on that in general? And because I think a lot that we talked about today was really understanding who we are, our uniqueness, our authenticity. Do you feel like that's part of the point of this Pluto and Aquarius? Because Aquarius is all about,
Mm-hmm.
you know, individuality as a way to serve the collective, right?
Hmm. I think, do you have any Aquarius placements?
I don't either know.
I have no Aquarius, no Leo, no Libra, and I attract those people into my life like I'm paid to do it. Truly. And
Interesting.
I think people always, I just wanted to mention that because I think people always think if they have no energy in those signs or a house, that it means it's not available to them. And I'm like, well, I've worked it out because I've got every best friend I've ever had has Leo or is Aquarius sun, has a Leo or Libra in the big three. I date so many men that are Leo and Libra, which clearly is its own issue, but like I attract I
I
I
love a good
attract that into
Leo.
my
I love
life.
a good Leo.
Oh, I
I've
mean, me
never,
too.
yeah, it's so
My
generous,
dad
so
was a Leo. Yeah, my dad was a Leo. I'm a Sag, so like, I just love him. But
yeah.
I think I've had, even though I don't have any of it, I've positioned myself in this way to have so much of it in my life and to be able to really experience through other people, which I think sometimes is even more powerful because we can get really caught up in who we are and how like our chart looks. So when we can experience that through other people, I think Aquarius is the ultimate sign for authenticity. Thinking, knowing that Leo is its sibling sign and Leo is all about the self expression and like the need to shine. In my mind, the way I kind of equate the sibling signs, we learned that in Leo. So now Aquarius is taking that and asking us to like not do it just for ourselves, but to do it for everyone else. So I think it is the ultimate shift in knowing that Pluto is a planet of transformation, knowing that Aquarius is not just for me the sign of authenticity and visionary and the humanitarian. It's also the sign that I feel like it is the visionary. And I think the most important part about being a visionary, which so many people miss, is and don't have, is they have the vision, but they don't have the lack of ego to when it stops serving its purpose to literally tear it all down and rebuild it. And I think the ultimate Aquarius energy is not afraid to say this was the intention, this is how it started, it's not working that way, we need to tear it back down and rebuild it, or we need to tweak it, or we need to take ourselves out of the center. And I think so many leaders, and Elon Musk is coming to mind, people who like center themselves, who think of themselves as leaders don't have that quality. And I think Aquarius is not just a visionary because it has the vision, it's a visionary and the ultimate leader because it has the ability to say, this is not working, this is how we need to fix it and change it.
I love that. Stripping away the Leo ego
Mm-hmm.
from the vision, the future
Yeah.
has to be
Not
all
that not that
based.
Aquariuses don't have an ego because they do, but they that God complex goes both ways between the Leo and Aquarius, as I like to say. But I do think when someone is like in their fully embodied, highest aligned version of Aquarius, they're not afraid to say, like, yeah, this is the idea. It really worked. It's not. Or this is what's not working. This is what needs to change and evolve to serve all of us, not just me, not just the original vision, like to keep evolving and changing and growing. So I think that's why we're all coming up against the like, this isn't working anymore. This doesn't work for me. How do we change it? How do we keep evolving? Because it's either like evolve or die. Not to be dramatic, but it is.
Well, and I think we're going to get real over the next 18 months. We're going to get a real big lesson in all of this because we have the nodal shifts happening.
Mm-hmm.
We have the North Node now going into Aquarius, right? And the South Node,
Mm-hmm.
which I have the switched. It's my nodal reversal because I'm a North Node
Okay.
Leo, South Node Aquarius. However, I'm a Libra rising, so they actually appear in the
Mm.
opposite houses. So, like, I'm a Leo North Node in the 11th house of Aquarius. So, there's like a
Oh, wow.
it's an
Okay.
interesting balancing thing. But so I'm kind of very familiar with this energy, but I am like, and because I'm familiar with it, I'm like, ooh, the next 18 months is going to be real interesting because for those who don't know, the South Node, wherever the South Node is, it really highlights what's not working, the toxicity
Mm-hmm.
And with that going through Leo, there is going to be a lot of reveal around what Katie was just saying, like the problematic ego.
Hmm. Yeah, ego is important. It's necessary. Like we needed to survive and function. There's nothing wrong with having an ego. And I would say, like, some of us maybe sometimes could have a little more in terms of how we operate in the world. But it's this centering of self at the cost of everyone else. That's what's going to, I think, really fade away. And again, like I always say, if Aquarius, if it's not good for all of us, it's not good for any of us, is like the energy I feel from that. And we've just been in such a time of what can I have? What do I get? And it doesn't work. It hasn't satisfied what we've been trying to create and align with.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be
I'm
interesting.
excited.
Now, I am excited too. I'm very optimistic about all of these changes that are happening. I mean,
Me
I think
too.
seeing the old paradigm is like you said, it's not working for most of us. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's going to get uncomfortable. It's going to be unfamiliar. And this is why we need these practices to return to ourselves, to return to our
Hmm.
bodies, return to our like natural energetic imprint. But for those who have those tools, I feel like we're going to be at an advantage as we're moving
Hmm.
into all of these shifts versus those who are like completely lacking any kind of self-awareness and really just still clinging to these old ways, even though
Yeah.
like against their own self-interest. It's always so weird to me when that
Yeah. I think that those of us who are comfortable playing in like the darkness, will reap and benefit and step into the light, the levity of it so much more or more fully because we have access to, like, we're not afraid of those depths.
which is like everyone listening to this. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's our time. It's our time, witches. So, all
Yes.
right, man, I could keep talking with you, but in the interest of time, I would love to
Yes.
move into the final questions that I ask all of
Okay.
our guests. So, Katie, what is a personal mantra or source of motivation that you like to return to?
Feel everything. I have a tattooed on my leg facing
Oh,
me. I see it every day. And that Capricorn stellium tries to keep me in the not feeling all the time. Capricorn moon, all the things. And it's something that I've really needed to and wanted to ground into in this last 10 years of my life. And everything we've talked about, like the more you resist, the more it persists. And when I just allow myself to feel the fullness of all of it, instead of categorizing it as good or bad, that's when I feel like I'm living the most aligned version of myself or the most aligned version of my life.
yeah. And I'm just going to say that that's even more important in this time of the technology and just
Hmm.
scroll and the ease of like having all of these ways to just quickly disassociate. I think
Hmm.
it's such a powerful reminder to say maybe instead of disassociating right now, I just feel
Stay.
it,
Hmm.
feel whatever's moving through.
Yeah, the desire to disconnect, like you just said, is abundantly annoyingly available. And and I do it too. I love a good scroll, but I look down. It's something I can't avoid. I love when people tell me I got my tattoo backwards. I'm like, think about that. I'm like, it's for me,
Well,
it's not for you. It's a reminder for me. It's right on my leg. I see it every day, so when I forget, I just there it is.
I love that. Such a good one.
Mm,
Okay. What is your favorite sensuous indulgence?
so many. um Day to day, this is like a little more. I love dark chocolate. It's something that just puts me immediately into my body and allows me to really like slow down and enjoy a thing. And then I am a big body care. I take baths multiple times a week. I am such a fiery being, so water is my best friend. So I am someone who really leans into, and I'm sure you can relate, like we use our bodies for the work that we do. So whether it's a bath, a massage, acupuncture, um, maybe for other people, they don't feel sensuous, but for me, it's one of the most literal, nourishing ways to connect to my body and replenish in that way.
Yes. I moved like a year and a half ago, and one of the things that I did when I redid my bathroom was a clawfoot tub. And
Oh, yes.
if you have never, this is my first home I owned. I've always like rented and had like
Mm,
weirdly sized or small, tubs or whatever. So it's the first time I have a tub that's like, oh my gosh, this is comfortable to be in. And
mm-hmm.
yeah. And I'm a Cancer sun. So, I love being around the
Oh,
water
of
in
course.
general. So I can agree a good tub. So get me in a tub with some dark chocolate. It's all over.
I'm my friends have a running joke, like when I'm not answering my text, they're like, Katie's in the bath. I'm like, I'm in the bath. I am in the bath.
Oh,
Always. I am
yeah.
forever taking a bath.
So good. Okay, final question. What does it mean to you to be living fully in your dark feminine magic?
Hmm. I think to me it means feeling everything fully and unapologetically, because for me, I identify as a woman. There has been so much projected onto me in my family system, in society, in the way people see me and receive me, which I cannot control and tried to meet for so long. And no matter how much I try to meet that, I'm always sacrificing a part of myself and honestly disappointing someone else. So when I allow myself to not just fully be in my feeling, but fully be in my body unapologetically in a way that feels like I'm being true to me while also honoring those around me, that is what feels the most aligned. And, you know, like I said, I'm not scared of the dark. I'm not afraid of the dark. And I'm not afraid of the darkness that to me helps unlock so much of the lightness and joy and love and freedom that I want to put out in the world. The other part of that for me looks gnarly and sensuous and grimy and like beautiful and deep. So I try to do equal amounts of both to really just be in that energy. And the more I allow myself to go into that deep, dark, beautiful, cavernous space, the more I have available to everyone around me as well.
I love that. And I feel like it's just sounds, you can hear it and you hear people say it all the time, just being in my body, being in my emotions, being in my depths. Like it sounds so, maybe not trite, but like
A little bit, yeah.
oversimplified, but like it's like that's where it all is. And it's really
Mm,
revolutionary right now and radical to say, like, it's not in the mind. It's if
hmm
you want to really live in your magic, it's in your depths and it's in the body. And there's like so many reasons why this is true, but really it's something that you can tell someone, but they honestly
hmm
can't understand it until they experience it themselves. So,
Mm.
this is why you guide people. So, what's the best way for people to learn more about you, your work?
So my Instagram at the Katie Healy, Katie, the traditional spelling of Katie. And that is just my name. I am not Catherine. I am not Caitlin. So
Oh, you
people try
were
to
going to Katie.
another pigeonhole people try to put me into.
Oh,
No, at the Katie Healy, I'm revamping my website, but it'll be back and live again soon. It's katiehealywellness.com. I'll send it to you. You can put it in the show notes. Those are the best ways to get in contact with me or to kind of see what I'm all about, especially on Instagram. I post a lot about the cycles of the moon. I post a lot about the work that I do, and that's where I share anything I'm offering, whether it's IRL or virtual.
and I'm also going to point people, because if they're listening to this podcast, to check out your podcast.
Yes. Yes, I have a podcast. It's called Breathe In, Scream Out, which you will be on very soon.
Yes.
And it's also episodes are based around the cycles of the moon, the astrological happenings in the sky and in the planets. And also, then I usually every other episode have guests that work in different realms of wellness, spirituality, or the arts, really. Anyone who I think is inspiring and inspires me.
Also, Breathe In, Scream Out is like the best podcast name ever. I am obsessed with it. So
My Aquarius Sun Leo Moon best friend came up with the name. So that is why I surround myself with those people, because they can do what I can't. And she came up with the name, and I said, "That's it. There we go."
that's perfect.
Yes,
Well, Katie, thank you so much. It's been
of
so wonderful
course.
chatting with you, y'all. I'm putting all the things in the show notes so y'all can check it out there. And I really appreciate you taking the time, and I can't wait to see how everything evolves.
Of course. This was so wonderful. I love chatting with you and connecting with you, and I can't wait to do it again.
Awesome. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for listening or watching.
Bye.
Thank you for joining. Follow me on Instagram at crimson.minx and visit soerotic.com to learn to live more fully and unapologetically in your magnetic power, sensual pleasure, and unlimited creative potential.